Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And today I'm reviewing a film that just recently came out to streaming. So the movie that I'm referring to is the 2025 documentary John Candy, I Like Me. This was directed by Colin Hanks. And that's right, I am referring to the well-known actor and son of Tom Hanks. So, whether or not you're a fan of documentaries, this is definitely one you should check out. If you were or are a fan of John Candy, this is such an amazing film that really does go over his entire life. In the documentary, we follow the full journey of John Candy, from being a young boy who had to deal with a horrible tragedy to becoming a man that first got into being an athlete and then into performing. We find out how he went from theater to television to feature films, and from being a somewhat well known personality in Canada to being a worldwide known actor. We get to hear a lot of behind the scenes moments of when he was on SCTV, when he was in some of his best films, when he was in some of his worst films as well, and all of the things that he dealt with while also having his own family, and of course, dealing with multiple tragedies. The documentary does do a great job of really showcasing the fact that this persona of John Candy was not fake. This was actually him. He really was a nice, caring, kind person that always looked out for his family and anyone in his kind of like surroundings, people that he worked with or were friends with, he always tried to uplift them and help them out as well. Now, if you're at all curious as to whether or not you might need some tissues for this film, I do recommend having some ready. There are some very emotional moments. Not just the fact that John Candy dealt with a lot of tragedies throughout different points in his life, but due to those tragedies and the effect that they could have on him and his own health, he really tried to either not think about it or was unwilling to talk about it and just kind of would wave it off, either out of fear or to try to keep his friends and family from worrying about it or thinking about it. And of course, one of the most impactful moments is what the documentary is leading up to, which, if you're at all aware of John Candy, you know that he passed away way too early on in his early 40s. So we, of course, also hear from his friends and family as to how they were affected by him passing on and no longer being a part of their lives. Throughout the documentary, there's all of these interviews that are of his friends, family, and coworkers. And a lot of these people are well known celebrities. So you get to hear stories about John Candy from Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Dave Thomas, Martin Short, Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin, Catherine O'Hara, Tom Hanks, Steve Martin, Conan O'Brien, Mel Brooks, Chris Columbus, and Macaulay Culkin. John Candy really was a special individual. He really touched and connected with so many people, whether or not it was in person or through the screens that you were watching him on. I know me personally, I loved watching John Candy movies growing up. There are so many of them that are probably in some of my favorite films ever. And the amount of depth of character that he had for so many of these films was amazing. You can go back and look at movies like Uncle Buck or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and multitudes of other films and just see the little nuances that he added to these characters, the emotional depth that almost all of them have. And it's just phenomenal. If you have not ever watched any John Candy films before, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Go and check one out just in general to honor him or to check out something that might become one of your favorite films. I absolutely loved this documentary, and I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. If you'd like to check it out for yourselves, it's currently streaming for free on Prime. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. And if you've already seen this documentary, let me know what you thought about it in the comments.